Level 1. Negative balance. -$6. Just like that. You blink thinking it might correct itself. It doesn't. A streaming subscription renewed while you were asleep, a charge you'd forgotten existed. The bank doesn't measure the size of the mistake, it measures the direction. You went under, and under has a price, $34. The fee lands before you finished reading the notification. The punishment for being short is that you become shorter. You stare at the number and feel something duller than anger, just tired. Before you can fix it, a second charge hits, a $9 app renewal you meant to cancel months ago. The system doesn't pause to ask if you're already struggling. It charges you again, $34 more. You now owe $77 to an institution that took $68 in fees from a $15 mistake. You call. The hold music plays the same 4 bars on a loop. A voice finally answers, reads a script, tells you fees can't be waived at this tier. You ask for someone above her. She says a specialist will call within 2 business days. Nobody calls. Your rent auto-pay fails the next morning. The landlord adds $60. Your phone carrier tries to charge and bounces, tacking on $20. What started as a $15 accident is now over $150 deep, growing in directions you never agreed to. You skip dinner out that week. Not dramatically, just quietly. A coworker asks if you want to split a pizza after your shift. You say you already ate. You didn't. This kind of hunger doesn't announce itself. It just sits there while you keep performing fine. You walk into a branch on a Friday to plead your case in person. The teller glances at her screen, and her expression shifts in a way you've learned to recognize. Not cruelty, something colder, more procedural. You watch yourself stop being a person and become a flag on a system, a risk category with a name attached. You leave without finishing your sentence. Somewhere between the $6 and the unreturned call and the failed rent payment, you stopped being a customer. You became a liability with a login. Level 2, $150. You're not underwater anymore. You clawed it back. Extra shifts, a weekend of overtime, skipping things you didn't say out loud you were skipping. Nobody applauds. The bank doesn't either, not in any way that helps you. A monthly maintenance fee hits regardless, $11, quietly withdrawn like it's owed to them. The minimum balance to dodge it is $1,000. You don't have $1,000, so the fee stays, a toll for the privilege of being nearly broke inside their system. You apply for a credit card to build history. They offer you a secured one. You have to hand over $250 of your own money so they can lend a version of it back to you at 26% interest. You read the terms twice, certain you're misunderstanding. You aren't. They want collateral from you to extend you credit made of your own cash. You decline, which means when your transmission starts grinding on a Tuesday, there's no plastic to catch it. You take the bus to work, 3 hours late. Your manager doesn't say much. He just looks at you a beat longer than usual, and you feel the sentence he's not saying. You return to the branch about the maintenance fee. The teller is mid-conversation with the person ahead of you, laughing, asking about someone's vacation. When you step up, the warmth drains out of her voice like someone flipped a switch. Professional, efficient. She processes your request in under a minute, no small talk, no closing pleasantry. The next customer arrives and the smile returns like it never left. You walk out and try to name what just happened. You weren't insulted, you weren't refused. You were simply moved through, like cargo on a conveyor. At $150, the bank doesn't dislike you, it doesn't see you at all. You're an entry in a ledger, not a person behind a counter. Level 3, $1,800. Something changes, not in your balance so much as in the algorithm's opinion of you. Your paycheck lands every 2 weeks like clockwork, $1,400 after taxes, the same amount, the same day, 6 months running. That consistency is the only thing about you the system finds interesting. The maintenance fee vanishes without you requesting it. The software noticed the pattern and waived the charge automatically. You check your account 3 separate times, certain it's an error. It isn't. Nothing about you changed except your rhythm matched a profile that makes the bank money, so they stop taking a small cut of what little you have. Real credit offers begin arriving. Not secured cards this time, actual unsecured limits of $1,500 with 24% interest, mailed in envelopes with your name embossed like you matter now. The same institution that rejected you 8 months earlier is courting you like you're new. You apply. Approved in under 2 minutes. It feels strange being said yes to by the exact system that ignored you at $150. You didn't change. The number did. You visit a branch, and the teller greets you before you reach the counter. Not the warmth reserved for wealthier clients, but not the coldness from before either. Something in the middle, acknowledgement without investment. You apply for a small loan, $4,000 for a car repair. Approved in 2 days at 13%. Not generous, not predatory, just functional, the way the commercials always claimed banking worked. You start to understand something nobody says aloud. The institution was never evaluating your character. It was evaluating your predictability. And at $1,800 with a steady deposit, you've become predictable enough to sell things to. You're not invisible anymore. You're not respected either. You're simply profitable enough to notice.
Level 4, $12,000. You open the app one evening and see your credit limit jumped. $1,500 became $6,000 without you asking. The bank decided unilaterally you could handle more rope. The next week, a real person calls, not automated. A banker introduces himself, gives you a direct number, asks about your savings goals and your timeline. He wants 15 minutes on your calendar. The same institution that left you on hold for 40 minutes at $150 is now dialing you first. Interest rates shift too. A car loan that would have carried 13% at the previous tier drops to 8%, not because you negotiated, but because you stopped registering as a risk. A $28 fee appears on your statement one month. You message your new banker. 3 hours later, it's reversed. No dispute form, no phone tree, just a note that says it's handled. The exact fees that used to drain accounts like yours for years are now optional, waived on request, because someone decided your business was worth the discretion. Marketing emails arrive with your first name spelled correctly, subject lines that feel personal instead of mass-produced. Small gestures, deliberately trained into the system, the way a business treats someone it doesn't want to lose. You start to see something that was invisible at every tier below this one. The bank was never cruel to you when you were struggling. It was indifferent, and indifference, scaled across millions of accounts, looks exactly like cruelty from the inside of it.
Level 5, $60,000. The bank starts calling you a valued client. The phrase appearing on your statement header, on the login screen, in the signature line of the person managing your account. You didn't earn that language. The balance did. Your relationship banker becomes an actual presence in your life, a woman named Priya who somehow remembers you mentioned a nephew's graduation 7 months ago. She emails around your birthday, not automated, clearly typed by a human. That detail isn't sentiment, it's strategy. Institutions train employees to remember small facts because small facts retain large accounts. You walk into a branch and someone rises to shake your hand, not a teller, someone with an office and a nameplate. They walk you past the line everyone else waits in, the same line you used to stand in, without realizing there was any other option. A pre-approval letter arrives for a $350,000 mortgage, unsolicited, the bank deciding your borrowing capacity before you've picked a neighborhood. They want the loan in motion before you've even started looking at listings. Pricing stops being something you request and becomes something extended to you. A competing bank calls to offer better savings rates. You mention it to Priya. She calls back within the hour with a counteroffer. The institution that once ignored your existence is now actively competing to keep it. At $60,000, the bank doesn't merely notice you, it starts defending you.
Level 6, $350,000. The bank stops being somewhere you go and becomes something that comes to you. Priya doesn't email anymore. Priya calls. And the call isn't a check-in, it's an introduction to a colleague from wealth management who wants 15 minutes of your time. He drives to your office instead of the reverse. He brings a leather folder of printed reports and asks about your long-term goals, your tax exposure, your estate intentions, questions nobody's asked you before. The meeting runs 90 minutes and ends without a pitch. He simply leaves his card and promises a follow-up. The selling already happened, quietly, in the questions themselves. You stopped being offered products, you're being consulted, and the distinction matters more than it sounds. A product is something a bank hopes you'll buy once. A relationship is something a bank needs you to keep needing, and that need compounds in value far past any single sale. A wire transfer freezes one afternoon. You call, and someone picks up on the second ring. No hold music, no script. The issue resolved inside the same conversation that would have taken 3 transfers and an afternoon at a lower tier. You attend a dinner the bank quietly hosts, a dozen clients, a guest economist, a rooftop view of a city you've lived in for years but never seen from this angle. Nobody discusses money directly the entire evening. Money is the room itself, not the topic inside it. You're no longer a customer at $350,000. You're an asset worth protecting.
Level 7. $2 million. Private banking. The phrase resembles wealth management, but functions entirely differently. Wealth management is a service extended to you. Private banking is a relationship, and relationships bend rules that services never do. You no longer have a personal banker, you have a private banker, a title that carries specific weight inside the institution. He manages fewer than 20 relationships total. Yours is one. He knows your children's names, knows about the scholarship fund you mentioned over coffee last spring without prompting. Your mortgage rate isn't published anywhere. It's negotiated directly, case by case. Minimum investment thresholds on private placements get waived because your history justifies the exception. Paperwork that takes 2 weeks for an ordinary account clears in 2 days because someone flagged whose name was on it. You walk into a branch you've never visited before, and they somehow already know you, a different banker standing to introduce himself before you've said a word. The system has marked you across every location, not out of fame, but position. You exist inside a database that prioritizes you before you ask for anything. You sit in a windowless conference room with no branding, a single slab of wood as a table, discussing an investment opportunity that will never appear on any public offering. The room exists specifically because clients like you exist. It only opens when the relationship justifies the cost of opening it. Level 8. $10 million. The word banker disappears from your vocabulary entirely. What you have now is a relationship, and that relationship is a named line item on someone's internal performance review. Losing your business would end careers, not dent a quarterly bonus. The institution no longer competes to retain you. It restructures around the assumption that it must never lose you in the first place. Multiple people inside the bank owe part of their role's justification to your account, a fact neither they nor you would ever say aloud, but the internal math confirms it. The financial products built around your money aren't selected from a menu anymore. They're drafted specifically for you, language written for an audience of one. A loan's interest rate gets settled over a single phone call. An investment's terms get shaped around your particular timeline instead of a standard template. You stop applying for things at this level. Things get proposed to you instead, deals structured around your participation before you've agreed to anything. The real shift isn't access anymore, it's influence. The bank doesn't merely serve your account, it consults your opinion. A senior strategist calls to ask how you're reading the bond market this quarter. A regional president visits to ask what your peers in this bracket want from the next generation of private offerings. You're quietly shaping the same institution that once charged someone like your younger self $34 for being $6 short.
Level 9, $30 million. You're introduced now not as a client, but as a principal, a term reserved for people whose capital moves markets in miniature. The bank assigns an entire team, not a person, a coordinated group spanning tax strategy, philanthropic structuring, generational planning, and market execution, all reporting through a single point of contact who exists purely to manage your time. Meetings happen wherever you are, your home, a hotel suite during travel, never an office unless you choose one. Family members get folded into the relationship, your children introduced to advisors years before they'll need one, groomed quietly into the same ecosystem that will eventually manage what you leave behind. Institutional research, normally reserved for hedge funds and pension managers, gets shared with you directly, weeks before public release. You're no longer reacting to the market, you're occasionally being asked to help interpret it for others inside the firm. The fees you pay aren't disclosed on a printed schedule, they're negotiated in a private conversation that assumes discretion on both sides. Everything about the relationship signals permanence, the bank behaving less like a vendor and more like an extension of your own household staff, present, discreet, structured entirely around continuity across decades, not quarters. Level 10, $50 million. There is no banker, no team lead, no single point of contact you could name if asked. There is simply the institution itself, restructured quietly around your continued presence inside it. Decisions that took committees for lower tiers happen in a single call because the caller's identity ends the discussion before it begins. The products you're offered were often built with input from people exactly like you, meaning the market doesn't just serve your tier, it's partially shaped by it. Somewhere tonight, someone checks their account and finds a minus sign in front of the balance, $6 under, a subscription renewed while they slept. The fee lands within the hour, $34, before they've finished reading the alert. They call. The hold music loops. A voice reads from a script and tells them nothing can be reversed today. They don't yet know the system isn't malfunctioning, it's functioning exactly as designed. The same institution that will one day fly a strategist across the country to ask someone's opinion on emerging markets is, at this exact moment, charging another person for not having enough. You were the same person at $6 short and at $50 million banked. The bank simply decided who you were based on the number beside your name. It never changed what it valued, it only ever revealed it.